All right, it's about that time on AM Live in the hour when we take a look at the dailies. But first, let me just remind you what our topic of conversation this morning, this being the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty. And we are discussing dignified livelihoods. And with me in studio, we have Faith Inyanchi, Fundraising Officer, FCA Kenya, Fin Church Aid, Karibu Sana. We also have in studio Maureen Cheng Njeri, Psychosocial Counselor, Kakuma and Kalobeye refugee camps. Good to have you in studio as well. And we have Irene Minor, human rights defender. So we get into this conversation, especially as it affects women and youth, because that is the dividend, so to speak, that has been left behind. How do we bridge that gap in a timely fashion in order to meet the SDGs? But first, let's take a look at the Daily Nation front page. Here we go. NMS ghosts come for Uhuru's allies. House team calls for a forensic audit of Nairobi Metropolitan Services operations amid questions over tendering for city hospitals after Auditor General flags several irregularities in her 2021-2022 report. Those who have been summoned in connection with this have been pictured, or rather have had their pictures published on the front page here. We have Dr. Gitahi Githinji, we have Richard Ngatia, Susan Bochache, and Kinuthia Mbugwa. And alongside an image of President Uhuru Kenyatta, former, and Lieutenant General Badi. Also on the front page at the very top here, I did not endorse Kalonzo's 2027 State House run. Raila now says Harambee Stars stand fancied Russia to a 2-2 draw in Turkey friendly. And on the equivalent of the ticker, but before that, further down, we've been conned, theft, arrests, tears on day 4 of demolitions. Police make several arrests of people caught stealing building material as homeowners battle to save their belongings from bulldozers out to crash their houses and dreams into rubble. Now on the ticker, the untold story of Kenya's forgotten fastest blind woman, Nancy Chelangat, has won 32 major athletics trophies, including gold at the Para-Athletics Championships, but Kenya has done little to celebrate her. Ruto scouts for public-private deals in China tour. President Ruto yesterday oversaw the signing of an MOU with 2 Chinese entities, China Energy International Group and telecommunications giant Huawei. And I'll flip over to page 3 because magistrate has freed 791 million shilling NYS 1 scandal suspects, former NYS boss Nelson Githinji, former Devolution PS Peter Mangiti, and businessman Ben Gethi acquitted for lack of evidence. So we flip over to page 3 where there is more detail, and here they are. The former Devolution Principal Secretary Peter Mangiti and former NYS Director General Dr. Nelson Githinji at the Milimani Law Courts on May 19th, 2021 during the hearing of their case. And just look at the first few paragraphs of this report filed by Richard Munguti. It reads, Chief Magistrate Misheni also quits NYS ex-boss Githinji and his businessman Gethi for lack of evidence in the case. And he tells us the reason is this, that the prosecution failed to produce enough evidence linking them to the theft of hundreds of millions of shillings in what was termed as NYS-1. Mrs. Misheni said the offense filed against the former senior NYS officials would have been proven if the prosecution had presented electronic evidence in their bid to pin down the suspects. She is quoted as stating no prima facie case has been established against the suspects to warrant the court to put them on their defense. So more detail on page 3 of the Daily Nation. Let's take a look at Taifa Leo. And this is it. Mwosho moja wa Pastor Ezekiel. Maseneta wanaochunguza mauaji ya Shakahola wasema wameridhika kwa kuwa hakuhusiki kwa vyovyote vile. I believe they mean hakuhusika. I don't know, I'm no expert. Further down it reads, watembelea kanisa lake lenye majengo la kifahari Mavueni Kilifi na kufanya uchunguzi ili kudhibitisha ushahidi dhidi yake. So an image here of Pastor Ezekiel Odero on the front page of Taifa Leo. At the very top here, sikusema Kalonzo tosha, Raila eleza kuwa mwaniaji wa Azimio la Umoja atajulikana mwaka wa 2026. Vifo, vilio na mateso, serikali ikizidi kubomoa makazi ya raia, hasara ya mabilioni, nyumba za kifahari zikiharibiwa Mavoko. And further down, this is Moses Kuria who says, utalipa ada kuhudumiwa huduma. Waziri mpya asema lengo kuu ni kuwezesha Huduma Center kujitegemea. And walimu 129 waliofutwa wakamatwa. Polisi wawakamata wakufunzi hao wakielekea TSC kujieleza. Then the Business Daily now. And this is the headline. Banks tap 54 billion shilling CBK support on liquidity crisis. Fund supports lenders hit by cash crisis. At least 3 banks breach liquidity ratios. This is penned by Patrick Alushula. Let's take a closer look. And banks and microfinance institutions tapped 54.2 billion shilling loans from the Central Bank of Kenya to boost their liquidity positions in the financial year ended June, pointing to a growing challenge among smaller lenders. Disclosures in the CBK's annual report shows a 6.3% increase in loans advanced to the financial institutions from 51 billion shillings that was borrowed in the preceding similar period. The enhanced use of the loans under the liquidity support framework was on the back of the sector's overall liquidity, dropping from 52.5% to 49.7% at the close of June. More details on page 2 of the Business Daily. Further down, Ruto scouts for public-private partnership deals on China tour. On the Business Daily ticker this morning, debt repayment eats up 67.5% of taxes in first quarter. Kenya spent an equivalent of 2/3 of tax revenue to service mounting obligations. There we go. Mounting obligations to domestic and external creditors in the first quarter of this financial year. Higher fuel adulteration levy plan to fund LPG goal. The government is considering a shift to a floating charge on the fuel anti-adulteration levy to maximize collections to fund the supply of free cooking gas cylinders to poor households. And Naivas headcount crosses 10,000 on a branch expansion. Let's now take a look at the Standard. This is what their front page looks like. Land evictions, blood, sweat, lies. In spite of the government promising peaceful resettlements and not forceful reclamation of public land, the events at Mavoko point to a change of mind and heart. What informs the recent orders? In a quote here, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, the Ruto administration will have zero tolerance. Just zoom in further. There we go. The Ruto administration will have zero tolerance to this keeps getting in our way, to inhumane eviction like it happened before. That will not happen in his term as the president. And we have the president here quoted as stating, we want to make sure that we are an orderly human society that respects the rights of everybody, regardless of who they are and their financial status. We are equal in the eyes of the Constitution. Different script. In spite of government promising peaceful resettlements and not forceful reclamation of public land, the events at Mavoko point to a change of mind and heart. What informs the recent orders? An image here of a home being demolished. And this is land owned by East African Portland Cement Company in Athi River. And here we go. What way for new UHC rollout plan? President Ruto is set to launch the universal health coverage on Mashujaa Day. Efforts by former President Uhuru Kenyatta to roll out the program across the 47 counties stalled, despite UHC having been part of the Jubilee's Big Four agenda. Ruto inks energy telcos MOUs in China. And at the very top here, we see single all his life but married in death at 76. I wonder what that is all about. Page 3 of the Standard. Bonds pricing. Banks could lose 208 billion shilling. And French toast, bouquet run riot in Paris. Let's take a look now at the Star. And as it is loading here, Let's take a look at the People Daily. How land fraud left homeowners in tears. This is the front page of the People Daily. And after river demolitions, victims of elaborate land grabbing involving elected leaders and rogue Ministry of Lands officials narrate how they were duped into buying cement firms' land all the time, believing the deals were clean because various government agencies were involved. More on page 4 of the People Daily. But Sydney Chaziba did file that report for us last night. Raila, I did not endorse Kalonzo for 2027 polls. As Azimio leader says he only praised his former running mate for the great work he has done in the past, but it is too early for the coalition to pick a flag bearer. Farther down, an image here of William Ruto in China. Invest in housing, Ruto tells Chinese. President William Ruto holds talks with Li Ji, a ranking member of the Communist Party of China, during his visit to Beijing, where he urged Chinese investors to take advantage of the opportunities in water and housing sectors. The president is expected to meet his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping, tomorrow on the sidelines of the Belt and Road Summit, which opens today, ends tomorrow. 22 billion shilling boost for women in business. Investor says the money will be used to speed up growth of African firms over next 10 years. Some good news there. And at the very top here, I think we've covered pretty much everything, have we not? Yes, we have. On the front page of People Daily, finally, we wrap it up with the Star. Reversal or strategy? Opposition chief had hinted at backing Musyoka Raila U-turn on Kalonzo's 2027 State House bid. Spokesperson says opposition candidate will be named months to 2027 contest. An image of them here, I believe this was in Siaya during Oburu Odinga's birthday celebrations. And that was for his 80th birthday. Also on the front page here of the Star, court sets hefty bond terms for NIS officers in 166 million theft case. Another attempt to decriminalize suicide launched. You'll no longer be arrested and charged for attempting to take your life if a fresh bid seeking to decriminalize suicide is approved. Nominated Senator Hamida Kibwana, whose image is published here, has fronted changes to the penal code to decriminalize the act that she attributes to the rising cases of mental health illness. And also here I see Michael Waikenda has penned a piece on Gachagua speaking for Mount Kenya. So I will leave the newspaper review there, remind you what we're discussing this morning, and reintroduce my panelists, and we can launch into that discussion. Today is the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, and we're discussing dignified livelihoods. With me in studio, we have Dr. Ann Kisa, who is Head of Programs and Partnerships, White Ribbon Alliance Kenya. We have Faith Inyanchi, who is a fundraising officer for Finn Church Aid Kenya, Irene Maina, Human Rights Defender, and Maureen Achieng Njeri, Psychosocial Counselor, Kakuma Kalubeye Refugee Camps. So we're discussing the eradication of poverty and what needs to happen, especially where the marginalized groups are concerned. And I will start with you, Faith. You look ready to go. Again, karibuni sana. Ladies, good to have you in a studio this morning. What does this day mean to you? It's meant to raise awareness, a level of consciousness. But for you, what does it signify?
It signifies growth and potential for collaboration, because when you talk about dignified living, it's not a one organization job, it's not the government's job, it's a collective job. And at FCA, we do quite a bit on that. So working with young people and young women to ensure that they're able to earn a living, and not just earn a living, even their places of work, actually they have decent livelihoods. So today is a significant day because then we get to talk about this and take stock of what has been done, what needs to be done, and what can be done.
All right. Yeah. So what is, in your view, Maureen, a dignified livelihood?
A dignified livelihood, from my perspective, means whichever type of work you're using, you are doing does not go against your values, does not go against your morals. You're forced, it's not, you're comfortable with the kind of work or employment you're currently doing. I think that's what dignified livelihood should mean for everyone. Yeah.
All right, interesting take on that. Karibu, Dr. Kisa. I'm curious for you, I mean, this is a timely conversation, but it's a conversation we've been having for a long time. We have so many, we've had women and youth funds established from the time of Kibaki. Now we're seeking to address unemployment by way of the digital economy, housing. Are we on the right track in your view?
Yes and no. We have certainly made strides as a country let's talk about since independence, because that's when we've really taken charge of ourselves and our nation. And the place of women and girls in society is increasingly getting better. But there's more work to be done. And that's why I say yes and no. And for us at White Ribbon Alliance Kenya, although our focus mainly is on maternal health and neonatal health, we know that at the core of good health is economic development, because poverty is one of those key reasons why women are held back in their social lives. They cannot access good health, they cannot access good educational opportunities, and then returns into a vicious cycle of poverty. So today is an opportunity for us to continue these candid conversations, but it's also a chance for the nation to look inwards and see what are the rights of the girl, what are the rights of the woman, even as we talk about poverty eradication for all. Because we know that human beings are not equal. In a patriarchal society as Kenya, we do have those who are marginalized. Even amongst women themselves, we still have different categories of women, and their experience of poverty is equating into very different results. And we are very glad to join this conversation with colleagues. It is everybody's conversation today. So everybody in Kenya today should talk about how is poverty affecting us and how can we eliminate it to improve health, improve well-being, and for a just and equal society. I mean, we cannot have some members of the population unequal.
Okay. Can there be dignity in your view, Irene, in poverty?
No. There is no dignity in poverty, because with poverty, if you're poor, you'll do anything to survive. We've seen people do absolutely anything to survive. I'm a ghetto girl, so I know. I've seen sexual slavery because of poverty. I've seen youth graduates who have turned into criminals because of poverty. So there is no dignity in poverty. Yes.
All right. So what is this a question of in empowering these enfranchised groups? And I did make it very clear at the start, I want to focus particularly where women and youth are concerned. Is it a question of access to credit? Is it a question of education? Is it a mixed bag? In your view, Faith, what are the factors we are looking at here?
I think it's access to opportunities for learning, opportunities for, like Dr. Hisa said, for women who are marginalized, opportunity to maternal health, opportunities to menstrual hygiene, opportunities to dignified job, yeah. And I think while we can say that some of these things have already been done, and when you look back, probably the government has invested quite a bit. A lot of stakeholders across board are doing little bits just to make ends meet for the marginalized. But how accessible is what is available? Because we'll keep on saying the opportunities are there. We keep on telling young people, you need to do more. Yeah, but are these things accessible to them? If I'll give an example, FCA Kenya has a creatives industry program that we run in Jericho, targeting vulnerable young people. And we also have the same program in Kakuma Kalobeye. And the reason we do that is because, well, digital skills are accessible, and we keep on saying Kenya is fast, is a smart country, digital access is there, but is it accessible to them? Unless we take these things to the communities and make it accessible in the grassroots, then opportunities are there, but they are not accessible to the young people. Opportunities are there, but they're not accessible to women. Yeah, the government said that right now they have sanitary towels for girls to be able to access in schools, but is it accessible in all schools? Are girls able to not miss school so that they can be able to, due to menstrual hygiene? Yeah, and some of these things are what then cause poverty. Because if you're missing school, that means you're missing lessons. Yes, you're missing lessons, that means you're falling behind. How do you then be at par with those who are constantly attending class? Yeah, and once you constantly miss school and you're falling back, you get discouraged and you drop out. And unfortunately for girls, that's a bigger question, because once you drop out, then you start being considered for marriage. And then what happens? You become a young mother, and then the cycle of poverty continues. And so at FCA, what we try to do is to ensure that the very vulnerable, the people who are really, really underserved, have access to education, to decent living, to decent and dignified working environment. Yeah.
Because you mentioned Kakuma and Kalobeye, I'll ask Maureen, why can we not afford to leave out the refugees in this conversation?
I mean, to begin with, no one, I think, in this world has ever thought one day there'll be a refugee. So it's because of very unfortunate circumstances that you end up seeking asylum in another country. And while they are there, I feel they should be treated much more the same as the citizens. And when you look at it in the long run, if you're educating a refugee, in the long run, as they seek for durable solutions, they will be bringing the output of educating them. The benefit is still coming into the host country, the country they are hosting in. So maybe to echo what Faith has said, I think for me, this whole poverty can be solved through education and awareness. As she said, the government is issuing pads. How many are aware? How many are aware that they're there? Where are they going to access them from? You see, there's this lack of awareness. The opportunities are there and everything, but there's this lack of awareness. And maybe it's because of education. This might have been advertised through posters, but we have people who can't read English and Kiswahili in the refugee camps. Lack of the education to even just get the foundational, the basic skills of, learning English, Kiswahili, reading a poster. They will not be aware of where am I supposed to get this free sanitary pad so that I don't miss school. So to kind of just dive deep into it, I think we will be looking more into education and awareness and how it should be free, equitable, and inclusive. I mean, when you're talking about education, leave no one behind. So that means women, girls, and people living with disabilities. And when I talk about girls, having worked there, I work a lot with children in schools, different level of in schools, and we have a lot of teenage moms. So when I say leave no one behind, I include them in this purpose. Like when we're having this discussion, we're saying everyone has a right to education and awareness. Let's not leave them behind, because they're majority of the population, and they need to have this education. They already have a family that is depending on them. They already have a young one that's depending on them. How are they going to be able to provide for this child? How are they going to fight poverty in general? Because being a refugee, you've left everything you once owned from your country. You're not coming to start afresh. What stepping stone are we offering as a country? For me, I think it would be education. Educate a child. You're educate a girl child, you're educating the whole society, because you will see the ripple effect. Yeah.
But how to change hearts and minds? Because sometimes you see refugees, and some do not look too kindly on them. Even migrants in general are not looked on too kindly. All right, so we need to take a break, but we will come back with the conversation. But when you were speaking about education, you reminded me of a lady I met in Kibra during a campaign, the 16 Days of Activism against SGBV, and she said she had to rely on her abusive husband to transact for her on M-Pesa because she could not read, she could not write, and he stole from her. So she could work as hard as, and still not, she had no control over her own finances because of that. So we continue this conversation on the other side of this break.
Tune in to NTV every weekend at 9 a.m. for Kids Adventures, the ultimate cartoon extravaganza. Don't miss the laughter, fun and magic.
Selfish, 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 selfish.
And it's not just about entertainment, it's also about teaching valuable life lessons.
Let's practice sneezing into your elbow. Achoo! Yay! You did it!
I'm going to show you how to decorate a bottle using glitters.
Let's go.
Trying to be an OG like me, chasing dreams, pulling more schemes for wealth. But the best thing
is seems nice and bright and everything feels alright. I went to school without a food, trying to pick a fight. I was low down, crisscross shirts. Now I feel you know you got to have them. You know you got
for the best of the 2000s, tune in every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and Sunday from 8 p.m. to 12 midnight.
So live your life.
Rhythm and flow.
Taking you back in the day.
Nation FM.
This week we focus on seeds. Just which is which? Hybrid or saved seeds from the last season?
We know when it comes to using hybrid seed, then it reaches a point the vigor goes down. The production keeps on going down. It's not like the traditional seed that you'll find you're able to more or less maintain the same production, or if it goes down, it's by a very insignificant level.
Farmers will use their own harvested seed without any form of treatment. And the risk is that it may suffer problems during germination.
The formal seed, you know, through breeding and all that, it is also adaptable to climate change, for example. Right now, you cannot predict how the weather will be tomorrow. You plant today, it doesn't rain. So you find that informal seed is also susceptible to weather vagaries.
You do your best out there, let us do our best in here with the disinfecting power of Jake. Because Jake cleans and kills 99.9% of illness-causing germs and COVID-19 in your home.
What makes you think that this is a proper time to show up for work? What kind of an example do you want to set for the staff, Rodrigo?
I'm Diego, Grandpa.
Diego, you came. You don't know how glad I am to see you.
Why are you so surprised?
I thought that you liked me.
You're mistaken. I just wanted to have some fun for a while. My goodness, you really are so full of yourself. Don't tell me you thought there was something between us.
But I did. I just thought you were really into me.
What are you doing here, Rodrigo?
I invited him.
What's the idea, Natalia?
You are both to leave her alone. Natalia has lodged a restraining order against the two of you. As of now, you cannot come close to her, look for her, or accost her, or the both of you will end up in jail.
Head over heels. Win a 3-bedroom house in Nanyuki sitting on a quarter-acre or a 30K weekly shopping voucher or a monthly plot. For every 100K you spend buying or paying for your plot, you earn 1 entry to the draw. The more you invest, the more entries you get. Bamba Nyumba na AMG.
Get ready to dive into the pearls of a generation that's shaping the future.
On this new season of Speaking of Gen Z, we uncover stories and emotions behind relationships. friendship, family, and much more.
It's not about the miles between us, it's about the connections we share.
And this is the strings attached edition.
Baby, come give me something.
Can we talk about situationships?
And my happiness comes first.
Speaking of Gen Z podcast, the Strings Attached edition. Wednesdays from 10 a.m. on Nation FM and Nation.Africa.
Welcome to Speaking of Gen Z.
I'll be like 10 minutes.
All holders are notified to report and surrender unclaimed financial assets to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, UFAA, on or before November 1st, 2023. Visit www.ufaa.go.ke and get started.
Welcome back to AM Live, and we're discussing the eradication of poverty, more specifically dignified livelihoods, because the theme this year is decent work and social protection. And just before we went on break, we had Maureen explaining why refugees cannot be left behind in this conversation. But I was asking about changing hearts and minds, because we live in a patriarchal society, and women, in some communities, women are counted as children. In some communities, women are not allowed to speak in the presence of men. They're not even allowed into some spaces. They're not allowed to eat some parts of the chicken. Traditionally, you know, where are we in tackling that sort of thinking, in your view, Dr. Kisa?
I tell you what, I think there's still need for a cultural shift and a mind shift around the stereotypes as regards to women and the place of women and girls in society. And to bring this closer home, at the grassroots level, White Ribbon Alliance has been driving this agenda of listening to the people on what they want, to then learn from those experiences that they share, and then sort of activate different stakeholders to act in the interest of the communities which we work at the grassroots level or at the community level. And why this is important is because, for example, what does women's economic empowerment mean to the woman in Kajiado, for example, the girl in Kumpa down here in Kajiado County? And we conducted a listening exercise. And we found out several things which I could highlight. First is that women are engaged in a lot of unpaid work. And we know that the value of work is in the returns and the payments that comes with it. And that means an economic boost to the worker. But when we have a community or a society which is very similar to other Kenyan communities, where women are involved in the domestic work and the care work of children and vulnerable family members, they sick, especially during COVID, that work is not remunerated. And when you compare to the work that men are involved in, that is work that is highly valued and highly paid. And that trickles down or trickles up from the community level to even the society level. Look at the positions women hold in society and how much money that attracts when compared to the male counterparts. There is an unequal distribution of paid care, paid work and unpaid work. And that has become one of the reasons why women are not economically empowered or free. That takes us to the other problem of gender inequality, because you cannot be equal if you do not have equal access to resources. But access is very different from control. If you control a resource, it means you can make decisions around whether it can be sold or not. Back to the domestic setting, women own chicken and goats, and the men own cows. That is very different economic value in Kajiado County, for example. But even if you look at the larger society, it is expected that you own a few makeup sets, maybe a few dresses, and the man owns the house. Why not the flip? So why I'm talking about societal stereotypes is we as media we as educators, we as women mentors need to drive into the minds of the girl child that it is possible to own so much, and it is possible to scale the heights of even academia. You can get a PhD if you want. You can be able to be president of Kenya if you want. And that in itself, having women in leadership, women in key positions in society, we're lucky to have had a Nobel laureate as a woman from Kenya. That is what should be emulated, but not only in the minds of the girl and the woman, also in the minds of the boys and the men, because they do need to support the girls to scale economic heights. So decisions making, control and access over resources, paid care work, unpaid work, that is what is resulting in unequal status of women in this very still patriarchal society. But is there hope? Yes. There is a lot of hope. There's a lot we can do. When we do a dignified livelihood perspective, what we are saying is it is possible for the woman in Kibera, it is possible for the girl in Mathare to be able to access good quality health care. And how do we do that? It is through the social, what did you call it again? Social protection. What economic policies do we have in place to support the universal health coverage of these women who are most vulnerable, the women who are most marginalized? You talked about refugees. Let us now talk about other categories of marginalized women in Kenya. Apart from women not at home, IDPs and refugees, we have women with disabilities. We have girls who are young mothers or adolescent mothers. We have those who are living with certain health conditions like HIV, like learning disabilities. How do we cover them? How do we include them into the economic participation of the country without marginalizing them? Is it affirmative action? Is it increased allocation of resources? Is it more awareness? Is it having community dialogues about the subject? I would say it is all of that, because it's everybody's business. Yeah.
Irene, often when we're discussing poverty, you'll hear technical definitions like earning below $1 a day. I don't know what it is now. Is it
2.5?
$2?
I think, yeah.
Yeah. So, but for you, what does poverty represent?
As a Kenyan, I'm going to talk in the context of a Kenyan. Poverty to me means a violation of our constitution, because to eradicate poverty, we need access to health care, we need education, we need proper housing, there's so many things that go into eradication of poverty. And that is in Article 43 of our Constitution, the social and economic rights. So this day was marked in 1987, on 17th of October. That is like so many years ago, and we still have poverty up until now. I wasn't even born then. So I believe that for us to actually be steps closer to eradication of poverty, we need to look at how we can implement our constitution, because we have a very beautiful constitution. It gives us basic rights, and it is just a few individuals that take away those rights from us. And I believe that for women and girls, women are mostly affected by poverty, because sisi ndio we work and go home and do unpaid care work. It is us who will get paid less than the man in the company, get paid less than the man in basically everywhere. Well, I think except the government. I think except there, because I've never been there, but sidhani kama wanalipa pesa kidogo. But I believe that if we can educate and have, as she said, have talks around accessibility. How do we access these resources that the government say they have given to us? Like the issue of pads. We keep hearing they're free pads. Oh, they're free pads. But if you ukikuja kwa ground, you will find girls using very undignified things. So, watoto wanatumia mattress, they use old clothes, There's in some cultures they when you're on your menstruation period, you just unaikwa kando and they dig you a hole so that your blood can just pour because they consider you unclean. So I believe if we start by giving people basic human rights, why not make affordable housing, the real affordable housing, not this levy that we are being taxed of, because I don't think that's affordable to people. Because personally, I believe, if they come to demolish the ghetto for them to eradicate, to erect the proper housing, that's not affordable for people, because one, there are people who own those lands. And when the government has jengad a gorofa there, do you think you're owning that land anymore? It's for the government. So if you're looking at making things accessible, let us make things really and truthfully accessible, and like accessible to everyone. Education, let us have education in, let us have access to education, because there are some places in this our country that girls don't get educated, that education is very ish, get watoto wanasomea hadi kwa mti and everything. And when the budget is being read, there is money allocated to education, there is money allocated to sanitary towels, there is money allocated to the housing sector. So I don't get it. I don't get why we're still battling with poverty as a country when, kama sai, there was a statement that Ruto said. He said that we are suffering now for our future. What future? What if I don't make it to that future because poverty has killed me before that my future? So I believe let us take small steps towards making our Article 43 more alive, because it is actually just there.
Well, Faith, you hear a lot about, speaking of cliches or statements you hear that are just bandied about, you empower a woman, you feed a family, a nation, etc. Is there truth to that statement?
I would say yes, it is. And here's the reason why. Women are considered nurturers. And as a nurturer, you wouldn't just take care of your family, you will take care of your immediate family, the extended family. And if there is the next door neighbor who doesn't have, you'll also take care of them. And for the longest time, even when you look at when our let me not say forefathers, let me say our grandparents, well, the men are the ones who owned the land. It's women and children who tilled the land, because then they were the ones who were sort of the owners of the food, yeah, because men will not go to the kitchen. So it was the duty of the women to go to the land, to till the land, yeah. And if they were able to do that much without an education, imagine if we had an education. And doubling it down and back to poverty, when you look at our current economic situation, we cannot say that women are going to stay at home and not work, because the reality is a family cannot be sustained with one salary. A family cannot be sustained with one person going to work, because the cost of living has shot up. It is so high. Even the people who ideally were considered middle class before are now struggling, and we are now complaining. And we really need to look back and say, what are we doing to change that? And one way of changing that is ensuring that both boys and girls are educated. Yeah, going to some of the ASAL counties where girls are not educated, the reason why families are struggling is because one person has been left behind. Unless we are working together, there's always going to be, the whole is always going to be left behind. Because considering me and Maureen are walking, and I'm way ahead, but I'm holding her hand, she's going to slow me down. But if I'm empowered and I have shoes and we are walking together, then we are moving at the same pace. Yeah, and women, the minds of women have been squashed, but we need to change that narrative. Yeah, and as FCA, we are doing so much around that. We currently have an out-of-school children's program in 5 ASAL counties. So Marsabit, Turkana, Garissa, Samburu, and West Pokot, taking children back to school between 6 and 13 years. And so far we've taken about close to 12,000 girls back to school, and even the girls who dropped out because of pregnancy. They're back to school and they're going through an accelerated program, because we believe girls also need an education. And unless we are educating girls, we are still, we are sort of setting them up to fail. Because once a girl is pregnant and the man runs away, the mom is the one who's left with the child. And so what happens if the mom doesn't have ability to provide for the child? The cycle of poverty continues. Yeah, she's going to be left back with her parents who also do not have an education. So what happens? The cycle of poverty continues, because one, she's not able to provide for the child is also not able to access quality education. Without a quality education currently in this 21st century, where are you going to go? Yeah. And when we double back to young people, even as Dr. Hisa was saying, not just focusing on young people in ASAL areas and the marginalized areas, but also in urban areas and in urban settings. It's always assumed that once you're in Nairobi, Mombasa, or Kisumu, you're well off. But the reality is we also have people who are in urban areas and they're really poor and they're struggling. And that's why we have programs like what we are doing with the creatives industry, targeting vulnerable people in Eastlands to ensure that they're able to access the digital skills, that they can be able to access the digital economy. Because if you're able to employ yourself, then you're able to at least earn a living. And when you look at what we have done before, we have worked with about 400 youth, and out of that, 39% have been able to earn the minimum wage between 14,000 to 15,000 shillings a month. And for me, that is a plus, because that is better than earning 0 shillings. It's better than someone who've completed Form 4 high school and they're staying at home, and then they're going to end up doing drugs or into joining a gang and stuff like that. And even for moms who are not able to maybe go to tertiary institutions because they got pregnant, we also have them in our courses, catering to them, and we allow them to come to class even with their babies, because they're the primary caregivers for those babies. Where do they go? And those are some of the conversations that we need to have, because if we are providing this resource and they're not able to attend because of inaccessibility. One, either you have not provided for them because of their disability, or you haven't ensured that it's accessible to moms to come with their children, then aren't you also setting them up to fail and making that resource inaccessible to them, in as much as you're saying it's accessible for all? Yeah. So empowering women is a must, but we can't empower them in a silo. It needs to be to cater for the entire ecosystem. Talk to the women, empower the women, but also bring the men on board. Yeah, because then they're the ones who I'm smiling because I've just mentioned women and mentioned men, and then I realize so far people are saying you're talking about the girl child so much, mesahau boy child.
I hear that a lot now.
But you see, when you look at statistics, yes, we have talked so much about the girl child, but in certain areas, the girl child is still so far behind. Yeah, but we cannot leave the boy child behind, because they are part of the conversation, they are part of the narrative. The girl child is not in a silo. Yeah, she needs the boy child to survive as well, and the boy child needs the girl child. So working together and bringing them together to ensure that each of them is thriving and has access to decent work. Yeah.
Maureen, how much can you empower somebody who, like you said, has left whatever they had in their homeland? They've been forced to flee, and in some cases you flee with the clothes on your back, and women and children are often the ones who are left at a loss. So you have your children, you have nothing but the clothes on your back, you don't own the land where that is providing refuge. For you, maybe you don't speak the language. Where do you start?
I mean, you speak like you... I like how you're speaking it. It's like you just visited the reception center, because that is the exact situation refugees do face, I'd say, asylum seekers coming into Kenya. And majority, if you look at the numbers, it's women and children, because the men are left behind to fight. So they come seek asylum and safety, not knowing whether the husband, the father, is ever going to come back. And so now, if you just take a quick overlook of how families are, especially in the Kakuma refugee camp and Kalobey refugee camp, it's either led by a woman or it's led by a child. There are a lot of child-headed households, because in the process or in the transit, it's always not a smooth transit when you're fleeing war. It's not like you're booking a flight ticket or a bus that will get you to the border. It is very gruesome when you hear the journeys they've had to walk, like so many miles just to be able to see a border and then being received into the host country. So which brings the conversation about, I see poverty, very relatable, mental health. We can't talk about poverty without mental health. And now when you're looking about dignified livelihoods, if you're poor, you already have poor self-esteem. Your self-worth is very low, because you're looking at everyone else who can be able to provide a meal for their family. They're able to do so much. But here you are as a refugee, you're depending so much on UNHCR and other NGOs working around there. We have, FCA working there to provide for a lot of things. And it's not meaning that providing is bringing this dependence on it. You need a stepping stone to start. As I said, you only came with children and your clothes. So UNHCR is working so hard with other NGOs to give you a stepping stone to start with. So there you have education, you have healthcare, you have basic needs. So for me, once you have your basic needs provided, and now you go into having now education, your skills will not be so much into trying to provide the basic needs, because that means still you will be living under the poverty line at the end of the day. So your skills should be toward building the economy, the society around you. So as I said, most of the families there are women-led households or children-led households because of the circumstances they're in. So what I do there with girls, as I said, with the mental health, we normally do some psychoeducation. We'll do some mentorship. We'll do some life skills to enable this girl to see the power she has in her, not to give up. Because you see, there's this part where the mom will eventually give up and be like, you know what, the cultural norms they come with. I mean, I have 5 girls. Why am I sleeping hungry? You're getting married. You're 13, you're getting married to this old man, so that when I get this mahari, the dowry, it sustains me, but it's going to sustain me for 1 more year. And then what? Another girl then gets again married. It is their culture to them for a child to get married. It is illegal here, but it's a culture. So part of also what we do is having sensitization forums where we sit down with them and question their norms, bringing them to start thinking about, okay, I didn't see it that way. Okay, if I'm paid this money, it lasts me 1 year. And then what next? What next if you have no more girls to marry off? What next? Where are you going to get money from? So those are the discussions we have. And I like that in the Kakuma Kalobey context, given that, again, women are the household head, they are normally involved in policies, in projects. Before any organization just comes in, they sit down and actually get to understand the needs. And then when they are part of this discussion, at least when a project is being implemented and something, there's that ownership that they have. And you can see now them accepting something for the greater good of them. And as I said, the more you talk to the women, you boost their, actually giving a woman a voice to speak, to hold policies, gives them this boosted self-esteem, boosted self-worth. Now they actually see, oh, okay, even if I am old, we have very now old people enrolling into the accelerated education programs because now they're curious, let me have this basic numeracy skills that will help me have, like, you know, I can be employed as an incentive teacher. I can help in some childcare somewhere and be able to communicate. So that, it's nice seeing the little steps we're taking. I mean, there's a whole huge acres of land to go with, but I know we've made like 1, 2, 3 steps. Clap for ourselves. Then let's see how we will handle the rest of the journey. As my colleague said, it's not something that's going to be resolved by the conversation today or the conversation this is going to spark, but a lot of action, a lot of policy change needs to be done in order to actually just eradicate poverty and giving women and girls, especially who are marginalized, and here I speak for refugees specifically, to have dignified livelihoods. Let me just mention one last thing. You see the issue of like pads. I've had girls who talk to me who have come in, the teenage mother, they're pregnant at the moment, and the more you talk to them, it is, they decided to sleep with a border man because she's not able to afford the basic needs. I've seen organizations like FCA having effort of giving hygiene kits, not only for girls, but also for boys, but it is never enough. I mean, let's say they procure 5,000 hygiene kits in a year. You look at the population of school-going children in Kalu Bay only. In primary schools, we're talking 21,000 children. So where is the 16? Who is helping this 16,000? Who's coming in to help this 16,000? So a girl who might not have been lucky to get these hygiene kits or these pads opts to, let me sleep with this border man. Let me sleep with this older man who is offering me something. And this something, pads is basic needs as a woman. You don't have to really undignify yourself to get it. I mean, just getting it, so that means, is that going to be a norm for you every month when menstruation comes to have to look for someone to sleep with so that you're able to get these pads? So if that is the norm, this girl has been set with. So when she grows up, I think it's now more of normalizing. For me to get something, I'll have to be sleeping with a man or someone on top of that to actually get what you deserve. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Kisa, can we, now it's going to be a sticky issue, but now that we are discussing agency over bodies, can we really have a discussion about breaking the cycle of poverty unless we look at, let me cushion it in more palatable terms, but plainly speaking, family planning, without addressing reproductive health and rights?
No, we can't. I like being blunt because a lot of things are sugar-coated and hidden, and that's why women have remained behind for too long. I think that when it comes to women's bodies and autonomy and decision-making, you cannot have a right over anything else if you do not have a right over yourself. And that, to me, is very fundamental. The right to self-determination is one of the universal human rights, as my colleague will confirm. And therefore, when we talk about beyond period hygiene and basic needs, to talk about the right to self-determination in terms of reproductive health, and to let women be the sole informers about what works best for them. As I mentioned, we've had a chance to listen to women and talk about what do you want? What do women want in Kenya? That was a very straightforward question, broken into 3 parts to about 120,000 women in this country, spread over almost 23 counties. And they said, for example, for maternal health, they want respect. They want access to quality. They say that even though we are from poor backgrounds, we do not have very good economic power in the rural area, in the urban slums, in the refugee settings, we would like to access care and do not discriminate against us in offering good quality maternity services because we're poor. And that to me is resonating very well with with what Irene said earlier about in certain settings we're not being listened to and we're not being heard. And that means we're stuck in our poverty for vicious cycles and generations. And I'm glad that the young people in this country are now having enough agency to talk about what ails them and what do they want to see. We keep saying the youth are the future of the country. No, the youth are the current of the country. Why do we want to talk about the future if we cannot talk about today? And I think that there is no dignity in poverty. I will explain. Women who are living under poverty conditions face very many intersecting and a myriad of issues. And that exposes them to several things that are undesirable for a civilized human to go through. It exposes them to very unsafe working conditions because they're poor. We have heard of girls going to the Middle East and really getting undignified reception there and treatment, inhuman treatment, because they're poor and they're trying to run away from poverty. She's explained how if you're a refugee, you have no say, you're not home. You almost have no protection whatsoever beyond the refugee camp. Do you even have a say over what you... So then they resort to these other undignified or very dangerous work conditions. There are many different trades that girls and women from poor setup or less economic empowerment setups are engaging in, which they shouldn't because they're not safe. Two, the other conditions they're exposed to is hunger. Imagine a human being not having food. How inhuman can it get? And that is a condition of poverty. If you look at it closely again, and I cannot stop talking about this because a lot of women and women who die in childbirth or newborns who die in childbirth is because of poor quality of care. And why? Is because they have not been allocated the quality of care they need. And because they cannot source it for themselves, they do not have the purchasing power to go to the private sector. That is why then they're losing their lives and the lives of their babies. I think that I would want us to not go away before we talk about Kenya as a country where we are now. We are just coming from the 4 Cs, right? As I mentioned, we are currently in the 4 Cs. We've just had COVID-19, and that had a very disparaging effect on young girls and women in this country economically. They were the ones who did the unpaid care work. During COVID, there was a WHO report on that. But beyond that, we are now in a rising cost of living in the country and globally. And young girls and women are bearing the brunt of the rising cost of living. If you're already poor, if the cost of staying alive rises, you are in danger. The other C, climate change. Climate change is affecting the livelihoods of almost more than half of this country's population. The farmers, the nomadic pastoralists. And you've just heard us report that it is the women who tend to these crops, it's the women who tend to these cattle, and that is being taken away. So in a society where they are already unequal and own less, they're even going to own less and less because of climate change. Lastly, when we talk about conflict, we think about world wars or the big countries fighting each other. But there are many other conflicts that come up within the country, often because of other things like democratic processes, but also in conflict in neighboring countries that then affect the women who come and reside here. So the 4 Cs cannot be ignored if we are to tackle poverty in this country. And we're going to have a grassroots listening exercise just to think about how is conflict, how is COVID-19, how is the economic cost of living, rising cost of living affecting the entire population, but especially women and girls, and especially marginalized women and girls, the disabled, those living in rural areas. Also, women who cannot read and write. because we do have a huge population of this country of girls and women who still cannot read and cannot write. They are fluent in their own native languages, but they cannot use it as an economic tool of trade. So we have to introspect now as a country and stop talking about the future. Let's talk about today and what can we do today as a country. How much budgetary allocation in your county, and now this I'm talking to all Kenyans really, how much budgetary allocation in your county is geared towards eradicating poverty to the marginalized in that county? Beyond, of course, building a road here and opening a school there, what's your governor doing beyond that? And what is the member of parliament at county level, the MCA, doing around budget allocation towards health and towards poverty eradication? That is a conversation that a Kenyan man, woman, girl, boy should be having on a daily basis.
All right. So we need to take a break. You know, I was wondering which C I missed because I had COVID-19, climate change, conflict, and then you mentioned cost of living. I said,
cost of living.
That's it. That's
in it.
That's
all
the
of
other
us.
C. but when we come back, I'm going to pose to Irene the question of how important is a helping hand? Because with social protection now, given the resources we are dealing with, I know you asked about money is going towards, but maybe it's not sufficient to meet the needs that are there. But the focus, the resources that have been allocated are targeted towards orphans and the elderly right now. But there are those who will say, ukiwa na mikono mbili, miguu mbili, macho mbili, ni nini unaomba, you know. But how much of a difference does it make, that helping hand? Social protection on the other side of this break.
Karibuni! Hii ndio base ya the best local entertainment. Baby!
Tumefungulia Magic. Starting from the 7th of October, Maisha Magic Plus will be on DSTV Access and GoTV Plus.
As a man, the way I handle my finances is more about thinking of the future. So as a young person who has had a father, it's thinking of the long game. So every penny that I get right now is going straight to my savings, hopefully to get more so that I can invest it. So I think as a man, that's how most of us think. Kama ufikiri hivyo, kuna kashida mahali. My name is Kevin Miner. I'll see you on the 3rd edition of the Man Cave on 28th of October. I can't wait. It's a man's affair. So see you then.
To get It's Finished by Njoki Munyi, dial *812*801#.
Skiza, Nan Nation.
All holders are notified to report and surrender unclaimed financial assets to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, UFAA, on or before November 1st, 2023. Visit www.ufaa.go.ke and get started.
Thank you for staying with us on AM Live, and this is the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty. The theme this year is decent work and social protection. And speaking of social protection, Irene Miner, do people underestimate how much of a difference a helping hand can make?
I think so. I think people do underestimate, because most of us are ignorant of the fact that others really do need the help. And nimesikia wase wakisema hivyo, like if you're born with 2 hands and 2 feet, you seeing, you hearing, why are you ombering? But a helping hand is very crucial, especially at this moment when everything is just crazy. It's so crazy, kidogo too, that you go to buy something today and it is this price, and then yesterday I was doing my shopping and then I was like, when did this happen? When did this rise happen? Kumbe things are just rising when I'm sleeping. There are people who really need help. Like the refugees. If you say that if you have 2 hands and 2 feet that you're not supposed to be borrowing, what of the people who cannot fend for themselves? What of the people who cannot access these resources? Everything is just happening so fast and so bad in this country. Nothing is, to me, nothing is actually happening as we hoped. There is the current privatization of water. How do you privatize water? What do you mean? I don't get some of the things that the government do, because they actually render us crippled. Because I have 2 hands and 2 feet, and maybe I cannot fend for myself. Not because I don't want to fend for myself. It's because there is no way I can fend for myself. If, say, I'm going to ask for employment, first, they're going to look at me as a woman. Second, they're going to look at me as a woman from the informal settlements. Are you qualified? Did you study? Did you go to which school? We've never heard of that school, so I don't think you're qualified. So I believe that although I wouldn't want us to rely so much on the helping hand, I would want us to challenge the status quo. I would want us to be out there and voice out. What do we need for us to achieve the eradication of poverty? Do we need to tell Ruto that we do not want privatization of water? Do we need to tell this government that we want proper health care? Do we need to tell the government that we need accessible schools and affordable everything? Let's do that. Let's challenge whatever it is that is being given to us. Let us learn to ask questions, important questions, not just questions. I do not underestimate the helping hand, but
you're saying teach a man to fish.
Yes,
so yeah,
yes. Let us challenge these norms, because you will go in the internet site and find people saying that that's even if we talk, who's gonna listen? That's if we do this, who's gonna do this? But if we keep quiet, it's just, we're just ni kama maji kwa mtungi. It does not make noise, and by us being quiet, we give out the notion that these people are satisfied. Like when the finance bill was being passed on, I don't know if it's Ruto or Gachagua that say that hii kitu tumepeleka public participation, and the people are okay with it. It is because we want voicing out as much as it was supposed to be of what we really needed. So what I will tell people is to challenge the status quo. Let us just not swallow what is being fed to us. Yes.
All right. But speaking of homegrown solutions, women have found ways around banking systems that maybe required them to have a certain amount as a deposit, or, you know, kitambo, Irene, you're probably not born at this point, your husband to sign off before you can open a bank account or even get a passport. Documents that you need to carry out, you know, if you want to level up the sort of business you do beyond Mama Mboga, now you want to export, you know, times have changed though now. But for a long time, these banking systems were not available. And therefore, these credit facilities were not available to women. So we saw a lot of homegrown solutions. They say necessity is the mother of invention, merry-go-round, table banking, now the First Lady's initiative, efforts such chama, tunazitanga chama efforts such as that. How do we mainstream these and level them up, in your view? Faith.
Okay, before I answer that, allow me to also just contribute to the question you asked my colleague around, does a helping hand go a long way? I think it does. And allow me to just mention a few things of how it does. Not necessarily on how helping maybe from me to you, but how when organizations collaborate in supporting the community, how that can help. So FCA has a peace project in Kerio Valley. And what we have done, of course, because Kerio Valley has for the longest time been a patriarchal society, we introduced and worked with the community to bring in the voices of women in peace conversations. And through that established women talk circles. And through the women talk circles also incorporated young people and asked them, so what are some of the things you would like to do? Diversifying the economic ability of women and young people. Because the conflict that was in Kerio Valley was mainly due to cattle rustling. So thought if we diversified the income, would that then de-escalate the conflict? And so far we have been able to see and support the community because women now have, there are some women who are doing beekeeping, there are some young men who are actually farming, some are doing dairy goat farming, some are doing normal cow farming. We have education, people who used to be cattle rustlers before, who put down the gun and went back to school. And aside from that, we have also partnered with Elgeyo Marakwet County to establish a peace department. So then we are empowering the county so that once we are out of Kerio Valley, then the counties can be able to pick up the peace conversations. Are we doing it alone? No, we are doing it in partnership with the community, in partnership with the county government, in partnership with the national government. So that is one way of helping. And we can ideally see it's already working. Yeah. Another way is one of our climate action programs, which is in, we partnered with Takataka Solutions, focusing in the circular economy, recycling of waste, supporting women waste pickers. Because when you think about waste picking, think about Dandora dump site. When you tell someone, let's go to Dandora dump site, nobody wants to go there. But there are people who actually go there on a daily basis because that is their office, that's their work. And what we have done is ensuring that those people, those women actually are resourced and equipped with PPEs, that they have gumboots, they have gloves, they have masks to protect them. So that in as much as we might say Dandora is a dump site, but ensuring that their work is as decent as possible. But aside from that, I'll give an example of just the other week, I was having a conversation with one of the women waste speakers. And so I asked her, so how did you find yourself here? And she told me she had a thriving business before 2020. She was a fish vendor, but she was thriving, she was comfortable. She didn't have much, but she was comfortable, she was happy, her kids were going to school. But then COVID happened and she lost, because people were not buying, she lost her business, yeah? And unfortunately, she also lost her husband. And that's why also ensuring that the woman actually is empowered is very important. Because once the breadwinner, who's a man, leaves, what happens if the woman is not empowered, yeah? So she went into depression for a while, but then she saw our work in Kitengela. And one day she just came and asked if she could join, and she was told, yes, come on board. And right now, she's able to support her child who has gone back to school, because she had a child who was PP2 age, but was not going to school. So right now, her son is going to school. So does helping help actually? Yes, it does. And even bring back to your point of chamas, for the women who are speakers, we also have financial literacy trainings that we do. And we supported actually the group in Kitengela, the Kitengela dump site, the women. We did a financial literacy program, we trained them, and now they have a registered chama, officially registered. And when I was having this conversation with them and asking them, so how much do you have in your account? About 7 months down the line, they have 95,000. And they are keeping each other accountable. They are borrowing and they are saving. And they are saying you cannot borrow more than what you have put in. So if you want to borrow 10,000, make sure you have put in 10,000. And I think that ability of holding each other accountable is really important, because currently they may not be able to access financial services. So the question is, how are we going to collaborate and work together? And I'm then asking the financial institutions, why don't you develop products that are to ensure that such women can actually access credit? Yeah, because just because someone is a waste picker doesn't mean she doesn't qualify to access credit. So can we also have that conversation and put it to the financial institutions to develop products that can be accessible to such women? And then finally, the creatives industry. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we've trained about give or take maybe 350 to 400 young people right now, and 39% of those have actually gone to earn a decent living. Right now, earning between 14,000 to 15,000, which of course can be more as they gain more experience. And we are hoping that by the end of 2025, 2026, we can be able to ensure that 61% of our graduates actually are able to earn a living. And how are we doing that? By linking them to job opportunities, linking them to earning opportunities. Because FCA, we have something we're calling linking learning to earning.
So where are these learning opportunities? I mean, where are these earning opportunity? I see Irene is like, yes, where are they?
So one of the things we're doing is also partnering with the private sector. So ensuring that when we are working with the young people, we're actually developing the skills that are needed in the market. Because sometimes you get that the skills that are being developed in class are not needed in the market. But aside from that, ensuring they also have ability to look for digital work. Yeah. Because we have work in the digital space.
I hear a lot about this work in the digital space. Which work is this? Irene, do you have experience in this area?
I think, and sorry to
no problem.
Jump into your point, because it's really a hot topic. It's hot because we get it wrong. The opportunity today to educate young girls, young boys, women, is the opportunity to make them, one, financially fluent. And that means you should be able to understand how do you get money, and how do you invest it, and how do you grow it. And that is not a topic easily taught in any of our basic education. I mean, we have economics and actuarial science being taught at very high level, university level, but why can't that begin at the very basic? If you teach me how to read, write, and be fluent in a language, then also teach me a language that I will use to survive. And that's financial language. And many women today, many girls today, you give them $1 million and they wouldn't know what to do with it. Because if you had given them 1,000, they still wouldn't know what to do with it. So financial skills, investment skills should not be a skill taught in private spaces. It should be a public good, a public skill. So that now we can have women truly, because economics is about money, truly participating in economics. That's one. And that all is about gender and development, because gender is not only about women. Gender is about equal rights for men and women. And when it comes to money and finances, then let there be equal rights to men and women. When it comes to loans and financing, let them be equal. Let them be putting these people at the same pedestal, at the equal pedestal. If you have, for example, too stringent, as you were mentioning, collateral conditions for loans, then those who do not have assets or collateral, who are women and girls, will not access the loans. But even after they access the loans, are they financially fluent? That's a language that should be in our conversations every day. Let's teach the girls and the women how to invest to get out of poverty. Two, I think when it comes to digital economies, and I think Irene now has gotten the light bulb. The digital economy is not only that I'll go on TikTok and make money. It's about I am selling my potatoes from the farm. How do I access the market online and locate my market online and secure my cash online and then bank it? That's the digital economy. The digital economy is not that you grow everything online. It can just be a platform through which you market, a platform through which you sell. It can also be a platform through which you engage marketing, your buyers and potential buyers. However, the world is increasingly becoming digitalized, and artificial intelligence is part of what we do every day. It's at the core of what we do. How about we teach our young girls coding? How about we make them fluent in the current global language, which is digital? That is what is the conversation we should be having, in addition to what she's just mentioned. But where are the jobs? I think I will let Erin talk about that. I have a job, I'm lucky, but I am very aware that there are many people in this country who offer skills but do not have the place to apply their trade. And unemployment is about to pass, is it 40% for our country? Yeah. And 10 years ago, those used to be other countries. Now we are here. And we must face that because the youth are our current, not future.
Actually, it's more of a question. I've heard of the digital workspace, although I'm not like conversant. My question is, how sustainable is the digital workspace? How are we sure that if we go that route, how many people can access the digital workspace? Again, we're talking about eradication of poverty. People are poor. How many people have access to laptops, to internet? Because those jobs need stable internet. Yes, they need a laptop. I've seen some where you click a link and you want to apply, and the condition is you have to have a 24/7 stable Wi-Fi or internet connection. How do I have internet when I live in a mabati house that is almost falling? How do I have a laptop in my house when I cannot feed my children? So how sustainable is this? How do we ensure, if at all this is the route that we want to go, how do we ensure that it is accessible to everyone? Also, we need to have the capacity building or awareness creation on the digital workspace. You need
the opportunities available.
Yes, you need to teach people how to use these laptops, how to go about the market, as my colleague said. How do you access the market? People are making money through TikTok, but there's some who are actually doing very
after hours
activities on TikTok. But again, is that dignified? Because you will find ladies mostly. Music TikTok masaa za usiku live is where things go on. I do not think that it is okay that I have to wear, to tiny things so that I can get likes on TikTok, so that I can get views on TikTok. Because if I go nikienda hivi mchana, I'll get 2 likes, but if I go in my bikini, people will start liking and I will start making money. How dignified is that? So can we find ways of making sure that if it is the digital way that people want to go of employment, how accessible is it? How sustainable is it? Can we bring that talk to the grassroots? Can we have those education in the grassroots level?
Okay. Yes. Maureen, I'm curious because you've talked about financial literacy. You're talking about
digital literacy.
Sorry?
Yeah. Digital literacy.
Digital literacy.
Yes.
There's this push towards now recognition of prior learning. So, for example, the refugees from their country, they had a certain set of skills which could be transferable in our current setup. Do you think that's a move in the right direction, that I might not necessarily have the papers from whatever regulatory authority or I don't know who the certification that is recognized in your country, but maybe I can plug into your TVET system, prove that actually I have mechanical skills in a certain area, and thereby be able to, get gainfully employed.
I wish that would have been the most ideal situation, because I got a degree from my country, but with Kenya, it works both ways. Kenya is very strict with its education system, and that's why it's among the best in the world. So you come with your papers, they have to be converted so that we know how is it equivalent to Kenyan standards. So that is it. Sadly, sometimes it's not equivalent. But the beautiful thing about the support refugees get, and one thing, I keep mentioning refugees, but there's also the host community, the Turkanas, who also benefit in the same things the refugees are also benefiting from, in a way. So, you know, with various donor supports, you might find someone picking up, yes, you had, let's say, mechanical engineering certificate from your country of origin, but now converted here, you really can't be called like a mechanical engineer, but there are courses that are offered, like several organizations coming to offer courses for free, both for the host and for the refugee community. You see, like FCA came in Kakuma and they were doing a creative industries. They were trying to teach digital marketing. And, you know, the opportunity was open for all, not just for refugees, but even the host community. But now, here is where I wanted to bring in the helping hand. All these organizations work because of donors. And over the years, as a young humanitarian, I have been seeing the dwindling donor support. Like the curve is just going down and down and down. And where is this putting people at? Us as humanitarians, as Kenyans, we're losing jobs, 1. 2, we still have this vulnerable population dependent on the Kenya government. Is already, I would say, passes trained with trying to support its own citizens. So it won't push so much support into the camps. So maybe this is a message to donors out there and everything to stop the curve. The curve started going down from when COVID came, and funds were dispersed to address COVID-19 in their countries. And then the Ukraine crisis came and funds went away. And then anytime something happens, funds just keep reducing. So you get, we're sorry, but you see the money we gave you last year, we want you to operate with 35% less this year. So now, this year we've managed. The next year they come, now we need another, you to guys survive with 30% less. And the impact is, like you see, like I see FCA, there are struggles to achieve SDG number 4 with various organizations. Quality, access to quality education. But with this constrained support, we will give you education, but we try, it's so difficult to give you quality, because to even achieve the sphere standards of, you know, a class is supposed to have like 1 to 40, 1 teacher to 40 learners. I mean, take a look at Kalobey, you have 1 teacher teaching 200 learners in a class. And it's hot, it's like 38 degrees hot. So, in a way, it's a sad place to be at, but there are women, there are girls who are defying the odds to try and get like dignified work. And as I said, deep down when we came into this discussion and I was just reading through it, I saw the one way to eradicate poverty is education. Education and capacity build. She's asked like, how will I know where to access a computer? There might be people offering that, but you don't know. You don't know how to read. You don't have the basic skills. Why don't I educate you and give you basic computer skills? Why don't I educate you and give you basic numeracy and, you know, literacy skills so that you're able to get into this market? Why don't I educate you and tell you you don't have to do these weird things on TikTok to earn? Why don't you can decide to be sharing your story as a refugee, how far you've come, inspiring other people, and you'll still earn money, and people will actually be very interested in that. So the key point of all this is educate them on different things, the soft skills, the life skills. Again, the literacy, the financial literacy will count a lot, because I mean, I learned financial literacy when I started earning, and 3 months after, like for 4 months you've been earning, and I'm like, so being told. So I hear, oh, you're in a circle. okay, so what does a SACCO do? We weren't taught this in campus, to be honest. With what I was doing in undergraduate, and even in high school, I didn't do economics. So it put me at a very disadvantage. I don't know how to save. I don't know those basic skills. And I'm learning, yes, but I don't know how to save and ensure this money takes me to another month. Takes me to when this dwindling funding resources continue going and I have to go home. What will I show for the 4 years I've been a young humanitarian? Is it the holidays I've been going and everything? I mean, now you see, those are the kind of educations Kenyans should be having. Like right now, I'm imagining, I've been trying to get this, reading a lot on the financial literacy classes. And they're very expensive. It's not cheap. Most of the time, these conferences are not cheap. And so many people actually do need this knowledge. So if it is something that can even be tapped like right into this CBC curriculum, into education system, let people be financially literate. As you learn how to do A, B, C, D, you also learn how to manage your money, when to take a loan, and a loan for what? Why would you, I mean, we girls, I won't lie, you'll find a girl taking a loan so that I can buy a wig that's costing 50,000. I've invested in somewhere. I'm speaking as a youth and what most girls actually do, and then you end up in debt over some things they really should have avoided. I mean, did you really need that wig? I mean, you should take a loan for basic needs, not for fashion. I'm like, I'm seeing she's wearing a beautiful dress. I want that, but I don't have the money, so let me take a loan for that. Having that financial literacy for all, which puts now education for all on several aspects of life, would be the first step to poverty eradication and a step towards, you know, dignified now livelihoods.
It's funny, I was on Instagram yesterday and somebody had the tags for the fashionable accessories in the pan, and they're like, this is now the food, the money I spent on food money was spent on handbags. Yes, Irene, your last word on this subject, on eradicating poverty. Oh, sorry, and before I forget, I did listen to the president's speech, I think when he was meeting the National Governing and Executive Council of UDA, and he said some 20,000 laptops, I don't know whether it's per ward or per constituency, would be made available in the coming budget. Financial, I don't know, but, you know, it's information. It could come in handy. Yes, your last word.
Laptops. Laptops, like your story, laptops, we've heard of it for so long. So I will tell people not to hold their breath.
Oh, wow.
But actually, don't hold your breath. What I will say is, there was somewhere, Gazeti, you read on our president signing off on a new loan. What I will say is,
on a new loan, did I read that?
Chinese something.
No, I said he's signing. He's signing deals, right?
No, he's still looking
something
for a loan.
He's
still looking for
his business daily.
She's
okay. Financially very fluent.
Oh, she's literate, financially literate.
He wants to sign off on a new deal. He had promised us no more loans for this country, and I think that is what is crumbling our country as per now. It is the loaning, and because I remember when Kenya was wanted to get a loan from IMF. I remember I was one of the people who went on social media to actually say that we do not need the loans. People went on Twitter, people went on Facebook to actually tell the World Bank that Kenya does not need this loan.
I remember that.
You remember there was a stampede on social media where we were telling IMF that we don't want this loan because this loan is going to crumble us. And then the IMF still gave us this loan. And then the IMF now is giving us conditions on taxes. As I don't get why they will dictate what happens in our country. I will tell our government that we do not need charity to actually eradicate poverty. We need sustainable measures. Okay. Even if you're taking these loans, what are you taking these loans for? Are you taking these loans to pay people?
So we'll have to stop you there because literally 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. Your last word, Dr. Kisa?
Had an entire day. But in 30 seconds, I think I would say poverty is at the core of gender inequality. And if we are not equal, then one of us is not safe. And gender inequality has resulted in gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, because, again, one of the people in that relationship is not equal enough and does not have purchasing power.
And they stay in that situation because...
And I think the only way for us to have freedom beyond basic education and financial literacy and digital launch pads is education alone is not enough. We need mentorship and leadership. We need to see women and girls in leadership positions. We also need basic human rights observed, because sometimes when there's poverty, there is injustice. And if we can have those legal frameworks to then start having guiding conversations and channeling policies and money towards poverty eradication, we eventually will have an equal society. Currently, we don't, but it is something that we can achieve as a country. And so thank you for having us. Remember, an empowered society is also a very healthy society, and the women and newborns will be much healthier if we just eradicated poverty.
All right. I am under so much pressure from my director. 30
seconds. Yeah, I think as my title says, I'm a fundraising officer, so it would be really unfair if I do not complete just saying that when you talk about helping hand, it means collaborating to finance some of the policies that have been put in place, some of the activities, and scaling what has worked. Yeah. So my call would be to Kenyans. My call is going to be to Kenyans and also to private sector to partner with organizations that are already doing something that has worked on the ground. And of course, when I say that, I mean FCA Kenya. Of course, please reach out to us. Reach out to us. We are doing so much to support women and young people to ensure that they have dignified living.
Okay. In a few words, I will say to all women and girls out there, especially those from the marginalized point, build your power within. We all have our power within. And once you have that power within, you'll be able to have the confidence to sit down with the men at the table so that you can discuss now the power with them.
Okay.
That's that.
All right, that's it for AM Live. And this morning I have had with me in studio Irene Minor, and we have also had Dr. Ann Kisa, Irene Minor, sorry, human rights defender, Dr. Ann Kisa, and she is head of programs and partnerships, White Ribbon Alliance Kenya. We've also had in studio Maureen Achieng Njeri. You'll tell me about that when we wind up. Psychosocial counselor at the Kakuma Kalobey refugee camps, and Faith Inyanji, who said I cannot let this opportunity pass, fundraising officer, FCA Kenya. Thank you for joining us. Good morning.